They want to control us just like a dictator.
This generation is so unserious, read some comments, as Nepalese Gen Z who were tired of corruption, nepotism and joblessness posted first protest fit checks and forced their Prime Minister and other ministers to resign. And they made reels as they did all this.
I was shot on my eyes, I was shot on my chest. They were shot dead on their skull, on their chest, on all this part of their body with real bullets on school uniform.
Don't mistake unserious generation for a literal remark. It's just a way of saying that these young people who are leading a change are not forgetting the humor while doing so. What happened in Nepal was the second time in a year that students in a neighboring country of India toppled their government. The first was Bangladesh. Indonesia and Sri Lanka were the other South Asian countries that saw uprisings. And one enemy that all of them were fighting was corruption.
एउटा एक्सपायर्ड टियर ग्यास मैले देखिसके है 2008 मा फेब्रुअरीमा एक्सपायरी हुने टियर ग्यास यसको चाहिँ यो मेटाउन.
Let me explain. Shoot at sight orders at students' protest, police bullets killing at least 19 students, protests turning violent, loot, vandalism and arson marked the streets of Nepal since 8th September 2025. Discontent among Nepal's youth had been building for a while. One of the major issues they faced is unemployment, which stood at almost 21%. This joblessness tied in with nepotism because the youth were disillusioned with the fact that children of influential families usually got the pie simply because of their surnames. Everywhere you look, it's sons, daughters, nephews of politicians filling posts, said former Commissioner of Nepal's National Human Rights Commission, Sushil Pyakure. Meanwhile, common youngsters griped about having to go abroad in search of jobs.
Every corruption in the country, from the local level to federal level, all the Nepalese citizens are fed up of corruption. Every youth are going outside the country, so we want to protect our youth and make the country's economy better.
They called out Nepo babies on social media. For example, this photo of Saugat Thapa, son of Minister Bindu Kumar Thapa, went viral. Here he is seen posing next to a Christmas tree made up of branded things. Critics called this a taxpayer's Christmas tree, insinuating that these expensive items were bought from the taxes citizens pay. Social media users called out many others like Saugat, including a former health minister's daughter Shrinkhala Khatiwada and a former prime minister's son Jaiveer Deuba, accusing them of living luxuriously, as 20% of the population lived below the poverty line, which means living off about 170 rupees a day. And then, on 6th September, the government banned 26 social media apps like Facebook, X, WhatsApp, Instagram and YouTube, which the citizens saw as censorship and a blow to their freedom of speech. Nikhil Timal Sena, a student who took part in the protests, told Brut in a written statement, "For us, social media wasn't just about entertainment, it was a space to speak, organize and expose the truth that mainstream channels often hide. When the government shut that down, it was like they were trying to silence our entire generation." Hours after this ban, CCTV footage of an 11-year-old girl hit by a minister's convoy emerged and became a talking point among the people. The official jeep casually rolled away as the girl fell to the ground. She survived with injuries. For Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli, this was a normal accident. That did not sit well with people who were already discontent with the government, and he was ousted 3 days later. While the social media apps ban and the girl's hit and run might not be the only causes, they compounded people's rage against the way the country was being run.
बड़ा वाला जो नेता बोलते हैं हम, उनका लाइफस्टाइल और हमारा लाइफस्टाइल देखो तो आसमान ज़मीन का फ़र्क है. ये सब नहीं होना चाहिए, ये इक्वल होना चाहिए. हमारे जेब से पैसा जा रहा है, हम टैक्स पे कर रहे हैं और वो लोग मौज मस्ती कर रहे हैं, ये सब कर रहे हैं, है ना. तो हमारा पैसा सही जगह पे जहाँ पे लगना चाहिए वो सब नहीं हो रहा है.
Since the monarchy was abolished in 2008, not even one of 14 governments in Nepal could complete a 5-year term. It has a rocky political landscape with constant shifts in party alliances and frequent changes in government leadership, and governments have usually been made in coalition. Coming back to 8th September 2025, students poured onto the streets and thus began the Gen Z protest. Reports said Sudan Gurung was a key leader in this protest. He runs an NGO called Hami Nepal, meaning We Are Nepal, and has been in the social service sector ever since a child died in his arms during the 2015 earthquakes. His work over the years has drawn him the support of youngsters. Hami Nepal was said to mobilize the youth for the Gen Z protest, asking them to turn up in their uniforms with bags and books in hand as a sign of peaceful protest.
हाम्रो फर्स्ट डिमान्ड चाहिँ तपाईँको गभर्मेन्टको इमिडिएट रेजिग्नेसन चाहियो हामीलाई। हाम्रो यत्रो भाइ बहिनीहरू मार्यो हिजो, त्यो तपाईँको त्यो के भन्छ 22जना त्यो भाइ बहिनीहरू मार्यो, त्यसपछि अरू 75जनालाई गोली हानेर मार्यो होइन। त्यही भएर चाहिँ यो इमिडिएट यो गभर्मेन्टको नैतिकता छैन, त्यही भएर यो गभर्मेन्ट यहाँ टिक्नु हुँदैन होइन। त्यसपछि अरू प्रोभिन्सेसहरूको त्यत्रो ठाउँहरूमा मेरो साथीभाइहरू भलिन्टियर्सहरूलाई कतिजनाले पिटाएको छ त्यहाँ होइन। हाम्रो सबै च्याप्टर्सहरूको मान्छेहरू कतिजनालाई घाइते बनाएको छ होइन। त्यो प्रोभिन्सेसहरूको सबै मिनिस्टर्सहरूले यो राजीनामा दिनु पर्यो है। थर्ड डिमान्ड भनेको तपाईँको चाहिँ जसले हाम्रो यो भाइहरूलाई होइन गोली हानेको छ होइन, तलदेखि माथिसम्म जो जिम्मेवारी छ एकजनालाई कारवाही हुनु पर्यो, एकजनालाई कारवाही हुनु पर्यो है। अनि हाम्रो त्यसपछि अब एउटा युथ्सहरूको इन्टरिम गभर्मेन्ट फर्म गर्ने, त्यसपछि इन्टरिम गभर्मेन्ट एउटा हाम्रो चाहिँ डिमान्ड हो होइन। यसमा चाहिँ तपाईँको अब जो पनि युथ्सहरू हुनसक्छ, त्यो युथ्सहरूले नै चुज गर्छ होइन। जो पनि लिडर हुनसक्छ, जो पनि लिडर्स भन्नाले अब क्यापेबल मान्छेहरू को राख्ने तपाईँहरूले होइन। त्यही अनुसारमा चाहिँ हामीले चाहिँ उहाँहरूलाई चुज गरेर उहाँहरूलाई त्यहाँ माथि पठाइदिने होइन। अनि त्यसपछि यो डिमान्ड चाहिँ नन नेगोसिएबल हो।
Law enforcement authorities used water cannons, pellets, and even bullets against the protesting students. At least 19 students lost their lives that day. That's when the protest turned violent.
It was being carried out peacefully most of the times. Then shots were fired, tear gases were thrown. I was lucky enough that I was hit by rubber bullets, but a lot of my friends were not. 19 students died. Most of them were students, school-going, college-going students. They were shot dead on their skull, on their chest, on all this part of their body with real bullets on school uniform. It's violation of international laws. And let's forget the laws. It's just basic common sense that you're not able to hit students, but they did it anyhow.
It soon spiraled into a vandalism and looting spree, with houses of ministers, including the Prime Minister, burned and pillaged, as well as the historic Singh Darbar Palace set on fire. A section of protesters entered a jail near Kathmandu and freed more than 1,000 prisoners. Among them was Nepal's ex-deputy PM, Rabi Lamichhane.
कारागारबाट मैले निस्किन चाहेको होइन, भिड बढेपछि कारागारले मलाई जबरजस्ती बाहिर निकालेको।
Students said on social media that they weren't behind this escalated violence and suspected that certain political groups like that of former Prime Minister Pushpa Kamal Dehal Prachanda and Lamichhane took advantage of the protests. Online discussions about Prachanda said he was avenging his loss of power in 2024 when Oli's party pulled its support from his government, leading to its fall. Nikhil's statement also added, the chaos also created openings. Certain political party cadres and groups with their own agendas infiltrated the protests. They acted in the name of Gen Z, but their motives were mixed. Some pushed their party line, others fueled violence for leverage. This blurred the line between genuine youth outrage and orchestrated political opportunism, making the movement's purity harder to protect. A similar public sentiment was seen in Indonesia just before Nepal. Rising costs, income inequality, perks to politicians, and elitist political leadership were among the reasons Indonesian citizens marched on the streets. Thousands of students, workers, and citizens protested in Jakarta and about 50 other cities. The trigger for these demonstrations was new housing subsidies for parliament members. People got really mad after the parliament gave themselves a huge raise in their housing allowance up to 50 million rupiah, that's about 2,70,000 rupees per month. For context, the average person in Indonesia only makes about 6.5 million rupiah or 34,800 rupees a month based on 2024 government numbers. The protests intensified after a police vehicle killed a 21-year-old motorcycle delivery driver, Afan Kurniawan. The homes of several MPs and a government minister were looted. They took collections of expensive watches, designer bags, and jewelry, among other things. Protesters demanded for the housing allowance to be cancelled, accountability for police violence, an end to police brutality, and broader reforms affecting corruption and political transparency. Similar citizen uprisings were seen in Bangladesh in 2024 and Sri Lanka 2 years before it. Students in Bangladesh led the protests and toppled their long-serving Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's government. The protests had started with demands from university students to remove quotas in civil services jobs, which gave precedence to descendants of 1971 war veterans, and this expanded to a larger anti-government movement. Hasina's escape to India in a helicopter drew parallels with the way Nepalese politicians escaped in helicopters. Another leader of the government that had to flee via air was Sri Lanka's President Gotabaya Rajapaksa after crowds entered the presidential palace. The 2022 protests were driven by a severe economic crisis marked by shortages of food, fuel, and medicine, leading to widespread public anger against the government and the Rajapaksa family's long-standing political dominance. But questions popped up about how these protests became so huge that they overturned governments. Theories about the deep state started floating. So a deep state is basically a secret, unauthorized group pulling strings behind the scenes in a government, totally separate from the folks who are actually elected. This hidden network, usually made up of bureaucrats, military and intelligence folks, and sometimes even private companies, just does its own thing without any democratic checks or balances. It can influence government policy covertly, maintaining control or protecting certain ideological or political interests, regardless of changes in government. All these demonstrations definitely point to one thing. Citizens have growing impatience for corruption, income inequality, and lack of accountability from the political leadership. And interestingly, social media reels from Nepal drew considerable comments and support from Indians. What happens after such large-scale protests though? Following the 2022 protests, Sri Lanka experienced a political transition with the leftist National People's Power coalition winning elections in 2024. While the economy has stabilized due to an IMF bailout, the cost of living remains high and political and social challenges persist. Bangladesh is currently governed by an interim government headed by Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus. While the country is in a period of political transition, it continues to face significant challenges related to justice, governance, and the economy. It is too soon to say what will happen in Nepal as the army took control right after the protests, but two popular choices for the next PM came up in rapper-turned-Kathmandu mayor Balin Shah and Sushila Karki, who was the first woman Chief Justice of Nepal.
Right now, the first thing is the interim government. The second thing is dissolving the current parliament. And the third thing is maintaining law and order in the country. These are the three things that we are looking forward for now.
As Chief Justice, she ruled on significant issues such as major corruption cases, police appointment irregularities, and the creation of fast-track courts. Karki also granted women the right to pass citizenship to their children. Back on the streets of Nepal, youngsters came out to repair roads, put back things taken from homes, and clean up after the protests. I'm Hamna Hissam Siddiqui, and I bring you the news of the week with Brut.